spirals in the sky. Will crew aboard Starliner fly? And Europe and Starship are in there too. I ran out of rhyme. Yeah, that kind of works. You know what? Let's just roll the intro and get into today's Flame Trench.
And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roger, Atlantic.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flighting downside SPD off. Bring in SPD off. Off. It's orange!
R45. Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
The methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Friends, Romans, don't cut me off this time. I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I am your host today on The Flame Trench. For those who don't know, The Flame Trench is our weekly show where we go over all of the biggest topics in space news and then get usually pretty spicy about the topics and go into some silliness. This is the much lighter-hearted show. If you're waiting for the more serious news, that comes right after this show with This Week at Spaceflight. But I am Sawyer Rosenstein. That speech was not AI. That was just that poorly written by me inside my head. Thankfully, though, I only write articles for NSF2 sometimes. What's the worst that could happen? You won't have to deal with me the whole time, at least. I am joined by some awesome people here with me. Speaking of writers, we also have Alex on The Flame Trench today. Alex, how's it going?
I do write a lot. I also talk a lot, so I guess I'm perfect for the Flame Trench, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. Good to have you with us. I know we'll be hearing a lot from you today.
Yes, a lot.
Also joining us today is EJ Sa. EJ, what you doing?
Oh, hey, I'm just taking a selfie and I'm gonna send it to Jack just because he's not here. You know, like this is my face when we do the trench without him.
Oh, what I need to do is
There we go.
send Jay that soundbite from
Perfect.
the Vandenberg launch, and we can just use that to represent Jack today. But yeah, it was great. But
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. I'm just gonna send this off to him real quick.
good. Tell him he also doesn't know what bagels are still.
This? Oh, okay.
Thanks.
All right, hold on. You don't know what bagels are, and this is a selfie of me doing Flame Trench without you.
Oh my God.
Of me and Sawyer. Okay.
Yes. Also, Long March 5.
Long March 5.
Long March 5. For those who were here last week, it's a running joke.
Now
Anyway.
Long March 5.
Long March 5. That's not going to be our main topic today, though. We've got plenty of cool things to talk about today, including spirals in the sky, as I tried to be creative with in the intro. Recently, we had a launch that left some spectacular views over the United Kingdom and parts of Europe. Alex, can you talk about Falcon 9's funky spiral?
Yeah, I promised this on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, or something, because we asked for some of this footage from our audience. Essentially, this one is actually from Blue Sky. We're asking there as well, and one of the things that caught a lot of people by surprise was this spiral, and we actually had a bunch of people asking. After we streamed the NROL 69 mission this week, and after the fact, I saw a lot of comments saying, "I saw the spiral from this launch. I saw the spiral," and people were wondering, like, why is it that this is even formed? And so that is from after the orbit burn of the second stage. So what happens is that the Falcon 9, that second stage, after it's already done its mission, it performs a deorbit burn because it's in a low Earth orbit, so it's rather rather easy to come back from a low Earth orbit. Now, what happened is that because of this mission's trajectory and like the mission planning and how it was going to go around the Earth and everything, it just so happened that after the deorbit burn, that planned vent of material, and I'll go into detail of what exactly is all about, but it's essentially that event that usually happens after the deorbit burn happened over Northern Europe. Normally on Starlink missions or even some other low Earth orbit missions, it tends to happen over the Atlantic Ocean or sort of like Western Australia and things like that. So not a lot of people end up seeing it, right? And so it's sort of this big thing that you see in the sky. You're like, what is that? Right? And this caught a lot of people in Northern Europe by surprise, and so all of the questions. Now, what is the spiral all about? So the second stage, the what it does is after it's completed its deorbit burn, it passivates itself. And what that means it just essentially depressurizes the tanks, it vents the oxygen and kerosene left over on the tanks, and then also drains its batteries, right? Now, why is it that it looks like a spiral, though? Because that's also another tricky question. One of the things is that second stage, what we think happens is that they spin it as it vents all of its propellant to be able to sort of stabilize itself, spin stabilization and everything, so that it keeps in a very well-known attitude, at least for the foreseeable future. And it's done, like, this is after the orbit burn, so it'll eventually burn up in the atmosphere, and it actually re-entered over the Indian Ocean. If you can imagine the world map, right? So if it does the deorbit burn over Northern Europe, it sort of continues this ground track south over the Indian Ocean, and so it eventually deorbited over there. But if you only have one vent and it's a spinning, it sort of creates a somewhat spiral shape, but it is not one vent, it's actually two vents, and that's why you see sort of like this, it kind of looks like a galaxy with like a bar in the middle and everything, and the spirals and all of that. Jay, can we show what I know you got it ready, but there we go. So you may see these vents actually on the ground. That's from the NROL 69 mission. There are two vents on the top of the liquid oxygen tank, and they can better be seen once they open those clamps at the top of the Stromback. So they open, and then you can see those two vents sort of venting, and actually there we saw like those two vents. It's sort of like in cartoons and things like that, when they are furious and they vent out of their ears and things like that. It kind of looks like that. Very funky, very funny. But that's the whole reason. It spins, and there's like the two vents, and so that's why you see all that spiral and everything. There's another reason why it was so visible as well, which is it was a few hours after sunrise here in Europe, and it was a very high altitude. So this mission, this payload, we think it went to a 1,000 kilometer altitude, which is still low Earth orbit, but it's quite a high low Earth orbit, if you can call it like that, right? So it was very high up in altitude, and so and with the light illuminating it and everything, because it was a few hours before the sunrise and everything here in Europe, so they were able to see it everywhere. I was not able to see it. I was here at home as a, I don't know, I'm in my cave here covering all of the stuff that happens in space. I was not able to see it. Our own writer from Twist as well, Marty, he's also in the area, and he did not see it. Our own Ryan Caden also didn't see it, even though there were a lot of BBC reports that it was seeing in the UK. But yeah, if you saw it, now you know it.
Yeah, in case you couldn't tell, a lot of us spend a lot of time inside whenever there's a launch rather than actually outside looking for them. Case in point, me missing the explosion after the most recent Starship flight when it was visible from my backyard as well. So I feel the pain of those people. I get it. But the term is passivate as they do this, right?
Yeah. Sorry, the other way around. I said before sunrise, after sunset. In fact, you can see there, it sort of fades away as it heads into darkness. I'm gonna wait for it for the replay, but I mean, you can see there the UTC time 20:01 UTC. Thank you, Jay, for putting it forwards. But yeah, you can sort of see it fading away as it goes into darkness. It was the opposite of what I said in terms of the illumination. Sorry.
So when we talk about the jellyfish effect, it's not just for the launch part, it's also for the second stage re-entry, which you were talking about along the Indian Ocean. In case you were wondering, for this particular mission, maybe people off the coast of Madagascar could have seen it, but this was the launch hazard area for the re-entry of that particular second stage, which worked its way up around Europe and then down to the trajectory that you see there, hopefully to be destroyed and any pieces splashing down into that. I mean, it's a cool sight. It's very rare to see, but it is such a cool sight. Is that something like we can look out for in the future? Like we say, hey, jellyfish effect warning, that we could tell Europe, hey, second stage spiral warning.
You know, Europe, maybe not, but if you live in Western Australia, it's something that may happen on certain Starlink missions. I'm going to keep an eye on that in the future, because sometimes, so for example, for those Starlink missions that go southeast, they go sort of like, you know, over the Indian Ocean and everything, and then they re-enter over the Indian Ocean, but some of the ones that come from Vandenberg, depending on the inclination, they sort of go to the Pacific Ocean, although they can also go... when they do these
Hi Jake. Speaking of spirals, Jake's
when
spiraling
they
into
do
camera here.
the Vandenberg launches, like this one behind me, hang on, there we go, the other way, I'm right in the middle, I cannot even there we go. So just like this one, for example, this one does the re-entry burn over Alaska, I think, so maybe if you're in Alaska you might be able to see that as well, but yeah.
EJ, I have a spiraling cat. What do you think?
He looks very happy to see you, man.
Not about the cat, about the second stages.
Oh. That was needed for this mission. People saw it. Stage didn't come down over a populated area. It's just cool to see.
Yeah.
It's just a really cool thing to see. Like that's pretty sick.
Yeah.
I promise that I will explain it on the Flame Trench, so there we go. Otherwise, that was the deal.
Well, I appreciate you explaining it.
I mean, Alex, you were talking about how they spin the thing. That's what that spiral was for. It was they were spinning the stage. Now, people are going to wonder why you do that. Well, I mean, they're probably spinning it so it hits re-entry sideways. So if this is your stage, it's going to hit sideways, right? And that ensures a complete breakup of the vehicle. If it tumbles in one way, shape, or form, like in a certain way, right, or they just kind of let it go ballistic, it's going to fly just straight engine first, because that's where all your mass is that's left, because they passivated all the tanks. That runs the risk of having parts come back down, make it through re-entry. Basically, your heat shield becomes the fuel tank and the engine, right? So you spin it, they spin the thing so it comes in, the stage is pointing that way, rocket engine's down here, comes in sideways to ensure that the whole thing gets burnt up. That's why they do that. It's pretty cool. I think it's super neat. It's a phase of the mission we just generally don't ever get to see. But also, cats are cool.
It'd be cool if we did a video about where second stages go.
We are working on it. It's actually on the show notes here that yeah, I am working on a video about this, just trying to see whenever I have the time to,
where does the stage
be able
go?
to do this.
That's right, it goes in the square hole.
It goes in the square hole.
That's right.
It goes in the round Earth, right?
It goes in the square Earth hole.
Yeah. But also, if you think about it, the whole thing about the two vents being 180 degrees and whatever, like that makes sense if you're trying to put a second stage in orbit and then it has to coast between burns and it needs to vent out. And it's like, yeah, if you don't want any propulsion or any tumbling or anything, you have two vents 180 degrees apart. But yeah.
Yes, Chad, Jake is very cool. He will not let me making the early birds. He doesn't even want to hop down. Normally, if I give him a little nudge, he'll jump down. He's conforming to me. He would rather spiral like the second stage. But yeah, keep an eye out for that video coming soon. And if there's ever a video where it's like, I wonder how that works, and there's enough people interested in it, pitch it to us. Who knows? We might make a video based on your suggestion, right, Jake? No, I'm not going to do a video about being able to get you more fish. I'm sorry. But we will thank the Space Pope with the traditional blessing of the trench at the beginning of every Flame Trench. We appreciate that, Space Pope. Thank you very, very much. While we're just talking really quickly about Falcon, I saw this question, and I actually wondered about this. Mercury and Metals was asking, Alex, does the design that goes onto a fairing half that they paint on, does that go on the active or the passive side?
Let me think about it, because now I always forget every now and then. I have to look it up again. I think it is
The
active.
Pactive. The pactive.
I think the passive is the one that is connected to the strum back, and it has the disconnect and everything. And I think the active is the other one with the logo. I think it is like that. Again, it is one of those things that every now and then I have to look it up. I have it written down and everything in my notes, but it's like...
Wait, Alex doesn't remember everything off the top of his head instantly?
It's a lot. It's a lot. Hey, Jay.
You got buzzed. Look at that.
All we need is Need Pizza in the background, one of
Give me a
our
break.
awesome channel members, to give the answer. Yes, my cat Beard is spectacular, thank you.
Chad's asking me where my dog is. My dog is not here. There would be a lot of bjorking. Bjork, 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 bjork if the dog was here.
I will show you my pet, but he just went out for a drink. So whenever my brother is back, I'll show you.
Wait, your brother is your pet?
I'm just joking. I'm like throwing him under the bus here live.
There you go.
So he ain't here. It's fine.
Thank
It's
you.
not like everything you say on the internet lasts forever.
Thankfully, he doesn't understand English.
Or
yet.
it would be gift into eternity. No, it's fine. Anyway, Jake is bored of this topic, so I think that means it's time that we move on to our next topic. And a reminder, if you have any questions about the topic that we're talking about, tag us at NASASpaceflight, and we'll be able to talk about them.
At Long March 5.
Long March 5. Now, this next one, Alex, I'm going to make sure that you talk about your analogy that you gave in the pre-show, because I find it hysterical. But let's talk about first Space Force and the national security launches. We've got some new contracts, EJ.
Oh yeah,
Later.
that dude. This is the good part, guys. I don't know if you heard this news yet. This is actually a pretty big deal. So the Space Force has this program called National Security Space Launches. I don't know if you could tell by the name, it's for National Security Space Launches. So they actually.
No.
Sorry, I don't know if you could tell. It's not just a clever name. Okay. So Jolly Green Giants, NSSL. Anyway, no. So they have this contract. They have this contract. They have phase 3 of the NSSL. So NSSL has been rolled out in 3 phases. So the first phase was a launch services agreement where they kind of, give out basically seed money to build new launch vehicles. That was already gone. ULA and SpaceX got that, and then there were, actually ULA, SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Northrop Grumman got phase 1 contracts. Phase 2 was a launch services procurement. So ULA and SpaceX got that. And now we're into phase 3. Phase 3 has what the Space Force has described as different lanes. So there's like, heavy lifting rockets, which is lane 2, and then like kind of lighter duty stuff for national security missions, which is lane 1. This was a lane 1 contract award to Rocket Lab and Stoke. A big contract being handed out by the by the Space Force to those two companies. That's a big deal. That is a huge amount of cash being injected into the commercial launch market by Uncle Sam. these lane one missions, I say they're like kind of for smaller providers, but these missions really are missions that are high reward, high risk. So these missions, the lane one missions would be like, you're on Stoke, which hasn't been proven. I'm not saying that Andy Laps over there doesn't know what he's doing. That those guys are awesome. Stoke is fantastic. The Nova rocket's really cool, with their reusable heat shield engine. Yeah, you heard that right. And then Rocket Lab, Sir Peter Beck's always doing his thing. Like these guys know what's going on, but it's like lower. They run a high risk to these missions, but it's a super high reward if they're successful. Similar to like how CLPS works, the Commercial Lunar Payload Services. Like, Intuitive Machines unfortunately had a little bit of a observation, from the side. Their lander unfortunately tipped over, but you have a CLPS contract where one lander tips over, another one lands, right? These are they're high risk, but they don't cost a lot, and they're also super high reward. That's what these lane one contracts are about. That is a totally new thing. We've never seen something like this. This is the first, and that's like kind of speaks to the beauty of NSSL, and why it's a great piece of I guess legislature. That's not really the right way to say it, I guess, but
Policy.
Yeah, that would probably be a better way to say that.
Maybe, yeah.
Right? Because, NSSL replaced the Evolved Expendable Launch Vehicle contract, so EELV. And EELV was really not championing new space. NSSL was basically rolled out and redone in 2018, and you're really bearing the fruits of that labor here. Once again, this is a huge injection of cash into the commercial market for these missions. It's really great. This is amazing stuff. I'm really happy for this, and I'm super pumped for Stoke and Rocket Lab. That's really cool.
Yeah, it gives them something to launch at least, right? Like,
Yeah, if
I'm
they
not
have a
saying
reason to launch.
exactly.
Yep.
Like, I'm not saying that they don't have customers. Of course, they have customers, but it's like it adds a few more launches to their list of launches and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, as you were saying, these are sort of the missions that can fly on like less proven rockets, but
Yep.
it's sort of it's like the U.S. Space Force is like, okay, I see your rocket, you're about to debut. That's another condition, right? That these rockets need to have a credible path to a first launch before December of this year, right? That's why we've only seen Stoke and Rocket Lab and not, say, for example, Firefly. Firefly is aiming for 2026 debut, or Relativity, for example, which is aiming end of 2026. Probably will end up being 2027 kind of debut for Terran R. But this is one of those things, right? Like the USSF looks at these rockets and they're like, okay, you have a credible path to a first flight this year. We think your rocket can do the missions that we want to do in space. You're on the list. And now that you're on the list, as soon as you do your first mission with your rocket, then we're going to start calling you and being like, hey, do you have a rocket for us? Right? And that's sort of the thing of these sort of NSSL phase 3 lane 1, right? Like that's sort of how it goes. Whereas on lane 2, it's missions that, have, they are carrying the big multi-billion-dollar payloads that are super expensive, go to very complex orbits, they need multiple burns of your upper stage, and all of those mega complexities, like, ooh, you need vertical integration, you need a super extended fairing, and blah, 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 all those things that they always ask. And so this is the one that's been traditionally the big block buys. Those have not happened yet. They are supposed to happen later in the year, and we all assume that it's going to be split between, because this time around they're going to be splitting it among 3 companies instead of 2. And, there's only 3 companies that may be able to do this, and that's SpaceX, ULA, and Blue Origin. So, like, that's probably where it's going to go.
Yeah, the 3 active heavy lift rockets, so to speak. I guess Vulcan's still technically heavy lift. But yeah, I mean, we talked about for a long time with all of these new space companies coming up. It's like, are they going to have the customers for it? What are they going to be able to launch? And I guess this is kind of a reason for them to keep going and to get all those companies out there and to see which ones can make the grade and which ones can't. Is to say, hey, build a rocket, show us you can do it. You guaranteed a payload from the United States military.
Yeah,
Now,
and,
Alex,
and that's... I will say as well, the Lane 1 people, those rockets could eventually also work. I don't know, like this is phase 3. In the future, there will be a phase 4 because this is for contracts running for launches are between 2027 and I think 2029. So it's like a 3-year span. Once we get to the end of that, there's going to be a phase 4. So there's probably going to be multiple lanes as well. So those big missions, maybe some of these rockets will have already a lot of heritage and we'll be able to bid for those, right? But yeah, you want me to say what I said before the show, right?
Of course I do. This was a brilliant line and I couldn't stop laughing, so go ahead.
Yeah, I said that the lane 1 is sort of like the kids lane and that lane 2 is the adults lane. I mean, it's sort of like, you gotta carry your kid by the hand and be like, come on, get to the market. And the other one is like, I just walked on the street, just, it's okay. This is the adults lane. Anyway.
Oh, that's funny. Jay, we should have a laugh soundtrack for that. Anyway.
I don't want the laughing sound. No, don't do that, please.
Of course we want it.
No, we don't.
We want the one from Jack. We want the laugh from Jack.
Yeah, Jack
For
laugh
this
would
launch.
be okay. You guys, Jack has very many levels
There
of
it
laughing.
is.
There
We're
it
waiting
is.
for it.
Yep.
Jay said he had a new sound effect, and I had a feeling I knew what it was.
What was it? I didn't hear it.
That's Jack.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That wasn't really Jack laughing. That wasn't really Jack laughing, though. That was Jack cackling. This is different.
Okay, well, we have breaking news.
yes.
Speaking of adding things to
Right,
to
while we're talking
things,
about contracts here,
yeah.
we have this that just came in this very second, saying that NASA has awarded launch service contracts for Starship. NASA has awarded SpaceX of Starbase, Texas, a modification under the NASA Launch Services, or NLS, 2 contract to add Starship to their existing Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy launch services offering. This contract provides a broad range of commercial launch services for NASA's planetary, Earth-observing, exploration, and scientific satellites. I apologize, I'm not looking at the camera. I'm reading this for the first time with all of you. These high-priority, low, and medium risk-tolerant missions have full NASA technical oversight and mission assurance, resulting in the highest probability of launch success. Wow. So
That's a
NASA's going to
big
be
deal.
giving contracts to Starship.
That's a big deal.
This is like when Blue Origin also got this for New Glenn and they got Escapade out of that. So Starship could launch that kind of missions right now without having done like a full orbital mission and everything. Like, that's amazing. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
So
It goes on to
go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say, it goes on to say that the contracts are a multiple award, indefinite delivery / indefinite quantity,
there
with
we
an
go.
ordering
IDIQ.
period through June 2030 and an overall period of performance through December 2032. The contracts include an on-ramp provision that provides an opportunity annually for new launch service providers to add their launch services on an NLS-2 contract and compete for future missions, and allow existing contractors to introduce launch services not currently on their contracts.
Yep.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you there, EJ.
No. I was just gonna say, like, okay, so if people are looking at this and it doesn't make any sense, like, what is? All right, those are words. So this is NASA, basically saying we can use Starship for our science missions. For, we were just talking about Uncle Sam with NSSL launching, the Department of Defense satellites
It's
or whatever
so
they do,
fleeting.
right?
Oh my
Right.
god.
Wait, what?
I was saying that it just so fits with this topic. It's like
Yeah, right. You're not wrong, right?
NASA must have been watching the Flame Trench. There you go. Proof NASA watches Flame Trench.
They
Thank
watch
you.
the stream. So this is NASA's kind of version of that. So this basically tees up Starship to be part of NASA's launch services program. NASA LSP is basically a kind of a collection of rockets that NASA has at their disposal to launch whatever they want, wherever they want. That's what the IDIQ part means. Definite quantity, indefinite delivery. It means we don't really know what we're going to put on Starship in the future, but we'd be hard pressed to not find something that rocket can do that is useful for us. But this is a big deal. This is huge because that's not just like, this is not NASA just putting their eggs in the Starship HLS basket. This is NASA putting, like, basically endorsing regular Starship, like payload deployable Starship. That's a huge deal. That's big. I mean, dude, guys, cast your mind back to 5 years ago. NASA wouldn't acknowledge that vehicle existed. They would not. They were like, oh yeah, and SpaceX is working on their other rocket, but we like Falcon. Like they wouldn't even call it its name. And then there was the down select for the lunar lander, right? And all of a sudden, Starship is on the books, and now NASA can talk about Starship. And we, if you watch Starbase Live, you can see you see like fighter. There's NASA planes flying around. You see astronauts frequenting the launch pad and stuff. This is a big deal. That's huge. Now, Sawyer, I don't know about you. I mean, we got the RS-25 shirts here going today. That's pretty good. I'm just wondering, when they're going to start using Starship like a space shuttle.
But again,
do you think this opens the door for that? Do you think it opens the door for stuff like this, dude? I kind of think it does. I'm just saying.
I don't. No, I don't. I feel like these are two totally different things. The fact that now NASA has gone for that commercial side as opposed to we have our own vehicle, we process our own payloads, we know our own dimensions. I feel like at this point NASA's saying, you know what? Give it to us the cheapest and give it to us what can fit the mission requirements. Because the interesting note on this, it says these high priority, low and medium risk tolerant missions. It's not any of the high risk ones. We're not talking the big giant missions that are gonna be keystones for them. These are decent ones. Like they wouldn't launch a James Webb, it sounds like, on this, but they would launch maybe a DART. But I don't know. I feel like there's so many launch vehicles out there now that it's going to come down to capacity as opposed to, oh, now we can use this as sort of a shuttle. It's, you know what? Falcon 9's better for the smaller payload. Blue Origin might have the edge trying to get to a specific orbit that we want, but Starship can take the mass of this payload.
Yeah, one thing that I will want to specify here and like clarify, because I'm seeing a lot of differing thoughts, I guess, is that this doesn't mean things like, oh, Starship is operational, because Jake, we can show what you're preparing right now is this thing of adding the launch vehicle to the NSL contract can happen even before the vehicle has launched. This is from 5 years ago, well, four and a little bit of a change years ago, of NASA doing the same with New Glenn. And let me tell you, it did not launch 4 years ago, right? So this is one of the things that I really feel like we need to specify here. These are things that NASA can do, pretty much like we were talking about with the U.S. Space Force with the NSSL Phase 3 Lane 1 contracts, which is like, okay, you're developing a rocket that we can use for our own science missions. Let's onboard you in this list of rocket companies that we can in the future use for those missions. So this means in the future, Starship can be bid as the rocket launcher for for one of these low risk, I guess, missions, or whatever means the missions that, if the rocket blows up, doesn't really matter. And for example, exactly. So for example, out of that, NASA gave Blue Origin on New Glenn the Escapade contract, for example. There's other rockets out there that have also been on the NSL 2 contract as well, and they've also been given NASA contracts even before they flew as well. So like, just trying to make things clear here that it just means that it is on the list. It doesn't guarantee anything about the part of, the operability of Starship or anything like that, right? But now that it is on the list, it can be called for a mission. SpaceX can be like, I'm gonna put my Starship on this bid. And as it grows in, reliability and flight heritage and everything, it can grow up in that sort of scale of different types of missions that it will be able to bid on. And there's like a bunch of different requirements that it needs to meet and everything for the higher, more expensive missions and everything. Say, I don't know, some James Webb Space Telescope launch or something like that, right? For those kind of missions, it needs to build flight heritage and everything. But as it does that, and they intend to do that very quickly, it'll be able to bid as well on those missions. So it's a big deal.
It is a big deal. Alex, I was talking about this with chat. I got something. I had a little bit of a brainwave. Do you guys think?
Go ahead.
I know. I'm thinking that's a very dangerous thing. I get it. I fully acknowledge the craziness. Okay, so guys, hear me out for a second. What do you think about this? So NASA, Sawyer, you don't think it's going to do NASA things, right? Like, it's not going to be like doing like what the shuttle did, right?
Right. It's not going to be launching all of the satellites for NASA, but a couple.
What if this? Okay, I have a crazy idea. Okay, what if this opens up the door for SpaceX to bid on like a Cleod contract, right? Commercial low Earth orbit destinations, and bid a Starship as a reusable space station up on orbit that Dragon could go to for like commercial crew or something. What do you think about that one? Do you think that this sets the precedent that you could do something like that? I think it does.
I mean, Jay, ring the bell. I disagree.
Really?
I'm totally not doing this just so we have contrasting opinions, genuinely. I mean, why? At this point, NASA would rather use this, I feel like, for payload development as opposed to a place to go. I feel like they would rather use Starship to launch a gateway, if that ever happens, but to launch gateway modules rather than become a gateway. Do you have the whole contracts that they're dishing out for these other on-orbit space stations, Orbital Reef, for VAST, all of these? They're working on those contracts. I think they'd rather use Starship as a vessel rather than a destination, especially when you're talking about the amount of mass that, in theory, this will be able to launch. There are very few rockets out there that will have the same capability for mass depending on what orbit you're going into or the size of the vehicles. I mean, yes, you have the 7-meter fairing at Blue Origins, which will help a lot with New Glenn. This, I'm assuming we're also going to have a large amount of payload space. I feel like NASA's going to utilize the heck out of that. So, as it says, going towards 2030 into 2032, now is the time where NASA's going to say, okay, let's start building missions that can fit inside of what we expect a Starship version 3 payload bay to be. That way, when it is up and ready, when it is more reliable, when they're not blowing up back-to-back ships, they can say, hey, we've got a payload perfect for your vehicle that has tons of science, like the largest mirror that we've ever sent on a telescope or something, because only your vehicle's big enough to fit it, and now we have a contract with you.
There's also the matter of like combining different options, right? Like Starship, because they're intending to have a mass production of ships, for example, and because it's made out of stainless steel and everything, even making a one-off expendable Starship, for example, that just goes into deep space, for example, like it's just used as a traditional expendable upper stage with like a deployable nose cone and everything, sort of like fairing thing, right? That sort of thing will still probably be not that expensive, and it's a really huge, payload envelope for whatever you want to put out there. You can even put a third stage on top, say from Impulse, right? For example, from the Tom Mueller company, and that also uses methane so it's compatible with all of the ground infrastructure at Starbase, as we can see there. And so those sorts of things, you can even combine them and launch very ambitious missions, which goes to one of the topics that we will not discuss here on the Flame Trench, but it's going to be discussed on Twist later today, which is all of the ambition, very, very ambitious goals and plans that China has, and that some of you may have heard lately. Something like this could totally blow those plans out of, like, it could just rain on them, essentially, right? It's like this amazing capability that you could in theory have to carry out very complex, very ambitious missions with like heavy payloads, going to really deep into space and things like that, carrying a big orbiter around Neptune or something like that, like really, really complicated stuff that we have not even thought of yet. So, I don't know, like I'm running out of words.
EJ, what are your thoughts on my thoughts, if that makes sense? I want your rebuttal.
I think you guys are underestimating how many of these things SpaceX is gonna make, dude. There's gonna be hundreds of these things. Alex,
said
you're with
they're
me.
mass producing it.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So all right. So Sawyer, I think you're underestimating how many of these things they're going to make. There's going to be hundreds of these things. How many Starships have we already seen? I get it. Test program, they blew up. I understand. What was the ship that blew up? Ship 33, 34? It's already been 34 versions of these things. I mean, that's not entirely true, but bear with
12,
me
13, 14.
Yeah, I mean, some of them were scrapped. Some of them voluntarily scrapped themselves. In flight,
Fair.
I mean, but SpaceX is planning on using this thing like an airplane. You might as well at that point. And I think an interesting stopgap mission, before if Starship ever gets a human rating, would be to basically build out a Starship with like an HLS interior and a docking port on the leeward side, right? And just send Dragon up there. Send a Dragon, or you know what, dude? Send a Starliner up there. Whatever. Maybe by that point that thing is actually working. That'd be great. It'd be excellent. Or a Dream Chaser. Come on. Don't tell me you don't want like a crude Dream Chaser docking to Starship Labs, so Star Lab. Don't tell me you don't want that. You do want that.
We don't need more star names. We have too
There
many.
is already a Star Lab that Starship will be launching, though. Just saying.
See?
It's from Airbus.
Is that supposed
Of all companies, it's from Airbus. Like,
Are you talking about like a Space Lab shuttle deal, But
yeah,
still,
dude.
I mean, they're gonna have to have a version with a docking mechanism of some kind for either Gateway and or the lunar lander variant with all of the refueling they're gonna have to do. So I'm sure they will have one on there. I feel like that would be something that might be like a Jared Isaacman type deal, like the fourth Polaris mission would be Polaris Space Station or something, and they use a Starship as its own station up there. I could see more something like that rather than something NASA would do. Because this brings up the question where I was kind of discussing of Vaquero asking, does this officially open the door for planning payloads in the 7+ meter class size? I think it does.
Yep.
What do you think, EJ?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm with you. And also, to more to your point, you said it could be a Polaris mission, or it could be a NASA mission. ¿Por qué no los dos? Why not both?
Because it doesn't seem like something NASA would do. Axiom Space, maybe. Polaris, maybe. I don't see NASA doing that. They've got their space stations that they're aiming for right now. Unless SpaceX puts out a contract in the next month or so saying, hey, we're also going to bid for that space station contract, like a VAST, like a Orbital Reef, all the other ones that are pitching out there. Those are the first two I can think of. Then I think NASA's going to say, all right, that's cool. You have your fun with the orbital station type deal. Come back to us maybe next contract and we'll consider it, but we've got our guys. But you are the ones we want for heavy payloads, you and Blue Origin.
Yeah, that makes sense. But you said it's more of a Polaris style mission. Who's the nominee for NASA administrator?
Yes, but that doesn't mean that with the NASA, that doesn't mean with the NASA budget and with the oversight that he would get permission to do any of the Polaris Dawns or Inspiration 4s like he's able to do not as administrator.
I know you're probably right, but I want to believe. All right, you got to believe.
All right, I'll leave. Oh no, B leave. Sorry.
Bless you.
Yeah, that one was bad. By the way, Bob Reed's wondering, where is Blue Origin mission-wise? Because we're talking about Blue Origin has a similar contract, the 7-meter fairing. Alex, where are we at with Blue?
Where we are at with Blue.
What are they doing? Where are they?
They did a launch of New Glenn in January. It did reach orbit. It did its mission. The booster, unfortunately, it did not land, but it was the first time they tried, and hey, good trying at least. For the second launch, there's rumors going on there on the interwebs, I guess, that it's probably not going to happen until the fall, and it's like, shh, everything, right?
As we put it out to 2,000 people watching live.
Yeah, exactly, right? But there is a federal communications permit that just came out today. Apparently, they might be doing some testing of the second stage at the pad next month on April. So we'll see. We'll definitely keep an eye on the pad and see whether that second stage goes out there for testing or not. We've seen in the past that at least for the first flight, that campaign, that testing campaign, went a little bit to the right of what they were expecting. I remember some of these same documentation came out for testing in the August timeframe, and then it moved to September, and then it kept moving for the first stage as well, later and later in the year. I think it ended up being like December. So yeah, but so far we have not seen anything for the first stage side of things. We'll see. But I wouldn't be surprised if, we get second stage April-May timeframe, and then we get first stage testing summer timeframe, and then we indeed get to a launch in the fall timeframe. But we'll see. It's also dependent on a bunch of things, like, say, maybe they're going to be flying an actual payload on this mission, and which payload? Is it going to be Kuiper? Is it going to be Escapade from NASA? Like, we have no idea. Right? So,
yeah, but that's one more they need to do to get their NSSL contracts there completed, to get their Space Force and national security payloads. Because if it's not confusing enough, we can loop it back to NSSL as we talk about NSL here on NSF. IDK. Anyway,
My
come on,
hurts.
Jay.
and Keon is actually saying this in chat. Yes, we were gonna talk about this. I'm seeing their comment in chat talking about Vulcan. We were gonna be talking about it.
I was just about to transition to that.
But exactly, like this news just came out. Like it broke right in the middle of us about to transition.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So going back to the other NSSL contracts, so they still are one away. But one company that isn't one away and now has their certification for these NSSL launches is Vulcan and ULA, right, Alex?
Yeah, finally. I mean, it got those two certification missions, the one in January and the other one in October. And after much careful looking through all of the data of that observation that happened in October, they finally had that certification approved by the U.S. Space Force. There's still some work remaining, right, until they are able to launch that first DoD mission that should be coming out in the summer timeframe. Right now, they have an Atlas V coming up with a Kuiper mission launching satellites for Amazon. And then after that, we'll see whether it's going to be another Vulcan, whether it's going to be until the summer with this Vulcan that we have to wait and everything. We'll see what happens.
I just want Dream Chaser already.
I do, yes.
That's just me. I'm ready for Dream Chaser to launch with ULA this year. We did an article, I think it was a week and a half ago or so, about the latest on how they're doing with the testing currently underway to get that first flight with Sierra Space. So check that out on NASASpaceflight.com. Let me thank some people here really quickly. Michael Lambros, thank you for gifting a Red Team membership. Phil saying, for Wilbo, watch, support, repeat as always. Well, thank you for that, Phil. We appreciate it. And Wilbo, we love you too. Poopa the Dog, that's a name, saying, I love you guys. I now want to be a dogstronaut. Awesome. We love inspiring people, I guess dogs as well, to get interested in this
Don't let your dreams be dreams.
Just do it.
Do
you're
it.
better Shia LaBeouf, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, you can. Nothing is impossible.
There we go. What might be impossible, though, is trying to figure out what the heck is going on with the International Space Station, because there's a lot of stuff on the ground about to affect what's going up in space. Not my smoothest transition. Anyway.
You're doing just fine, man.
Thank you. I'm amazed I'm hosting today. But anyway, let's continue on here. Let's start off with Cygnus, because we got word this week that the Cygnus resupply vehicle that they were going to be launching on, I believe this was NG-22, was dropped, it sounds like, or had some kind of incident where it was damaged in processing. And so they said, we'll have to see if it's even flyable or not. Turns out, no. The damage wasn't just to the shipping container during transit. The damage was actually to the pressurized part of the Cygnus resupply vehicle itself. Excuse me, Jay. The observation. It had an observation again because ULA... That would have been a better transition with ULA's observation. Anyway, it's they done messed up, Aaron. Okay? And so, yes.
That's a reference I can get behind.
As a result, that means that NG-22 will not fly. It sounds like it's going to take some work, and NG-22 is now officially off the table. So the next one will be NG-23, which will happen in the fall. In the meantime, CRS-32 will become the next resupply mission that would be aboard the SpaceX Cargo Dragon, and that is scheduled to launch mid-April right now.
But Sawyer, didn't we cover this in a previous Flame Trench? What happened new?
What happened new is that they decided they're not going to fly the thing. It's
Exactly.
Yeah.
We had the damaged container,
That's
and
what I
now they
said.
found out, oops, the cargo.
I said that.
Yeah, okay.
Just remember, guys, next time you think, oh man, I screwed up at work so bad, you could be the person that dropped a multi-million-dollar spacecraft and damaged it beyond repair. Just saying. That could be you. It can always be worse.
Could also
Just
be
putting
the
it out
guy.
there.
It could also be the guy, checking out a turbo pump on a oxygen-rich stage combustion engine, or I don't know, struts on a CUPV.
Or the person who installed the This Way Up device in a Proton.
Oh.
Or not checking your
Yeah.
resonance frequency before deploying your spacecraft into a low Earth orbit. That ends up spinning out of control and cannot get to the ISS, therefore not delivering 3 tons
See?
of cargo.
Or forget to remove before flight tag as you're about to land on the moon.
See? Could be way worse all the time.
And there was that one that actually where they dropped the satellite. Now we need a new meme instead of you could have been the one that dropped the satellite. You could have been the one that damaged the Cygnus resupply vehicle beyond repair.
Yep. Just remember, when you're having a bad day, somebody out there dropped his spaceship and broke it completely. You think that guy's having a bad day? I think that guy's having a bad day.
Yeah, that's not great, Bob. Not great. But yeah, so the note here is that it also has in our little show notes that means that they are pretty much reliant at this point now entirely upon SpaceX and the Russian resupply vehicles right now for ISS supplies.
At least until the fall time frame.
Right, till the fall. There's no Cygnus ready, which we'll have to launch on Falcon 9 anyway because Antares 300 series isn't up yet. So you got that. And then you have the resupply vehicles there, and it's not like Starliner is going to be bringing up anything anytime soon. And if so, would it be bringing people? Would it be bringing cargo?
I have one
don't
thing,
know.
though.
What?
It's a spoiler for this week in Spaceflight, but I'm going to mention it because... So you see there, that's the old Cygnus. It has 2
Yep.
barrel sections. the new one, or the one that they are flying so far, has 3 barrel sections. And then there's a new one coming up on Cirrus, on the NG-23 mission, which has 4 barrel sections, which means it's longer. Which means when you put it here on this rocket, on this Falcon 9, because now NG-23, the one with the 4 barrel sections, and it's gonna be longer, it's gonna fly on Falcon 9 most likely, if it's gonna have any chance of flying this fall. So, you know what happens when they fly on Falcon 9? They still have load cargo capabilities, because they have this sort of nice door on the fairing that allows them to access, there we go, the Cygnus while it is horizontal. That door is placed according to a certain length of the Cygnus. If you lengthen the Cygnus, then the door needs to be in another position, and now also maybe the operations need to be different. The access to the Cygnus while you are inside of the fairing might be different. So, yeah, things do get complicated just because you damage one single cargo pressurized module, or whatever they call it technically. But yeah. Welcome to spaceflight. Things do have consequences, even if they are very, like, super small. Like, that's from Tales, Alenia, or Talis, as it's the actual pronunciation. You can see there the different Cygnus pressurized cargo modules. Like, they are 3 barrel sections instead of 4, which is the upcoming length.
But Alex, what do the 4 barrel sections do? Oh, no, wait, those aren't the 4 towers. Never mind.
Well, it brings more cargo, which is nice. But, you know, going back to what you were going to be mentioning, you know what could also carry cargo?
Yeah, that's where I was trying to go to originally, of, you know, being reliant upon that because you don't have Cygnus yet. I do want to answer a couple quick questions here before we move on to that topic here. So Ninja Guy Dan is basically asking, do we even know what happened to the container other than damage beyond repair? EJ, do we know?
No, but to wreck the container, the cargo module, and the carrier module, the container and basically the entire spacecraft in it, to the point where NASA's like, I don't know if we should launch that. It had to have been something pretty serious. You guys, the spacecraft are pretty delicate pieces of equipment. They're not really designed to be dropped. You know what I mean? Like, even if you had like an automobile, right, and you dropped it from like 2 or 3 meters, that would still break things, right? This is, let alone like a big spaceship. Now, I don't know how far it fell, right? No idea. But it was enough for them to go,
Do we even know when in that transit was, like, when that happened? Because that thing goes all the way from Italy to, like, the launch site, the launch site. So it's like, when did this happen?
Yeah, I have no idea, dude.
Did it hit rough waves and something wasn't secured, or?
I have no idea.
Duct tape will make it okay, Chad. I mean, I don't.
Jack, you have no right to be in chat. You opted out from the Flame Trench.
Hey, Jack, still. There you go. And then the question is, so also they're just going to pull SpaceX and get rid of 22? So mission name's just gone? Sounds like
maybe they'll rearrange. It wouldn't be the first time that Cygnus launches out of order. We had OA7 before OA6. That was fun.
Oh, yes. I remember that. Was that Falcon flights, or was that when they were on Atlas?
That was Atlas, I think. Like, it was an Antares mission. I think it was on an OA6, and OA7 was on Atlas, but they launched the one on Atlas first and then the one on Antares.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah, that's not confusing at all. Going out of order. You're going to say
Guys,
something?
I got a question. Maybe. I have a question. Has any spacecraft launched, like Cygnus, launched on 3 different rockets? Because Cygnus has flown on Antares, Atlas, Atlas V and Falcon 9. It has any other spacecraft done that just out of just sheer curiosity?
And even with Antares, it was multiple different configurations.
Right.
Well.
So we could technically say that, Cygnus has flown on 3.5 different rockets. That's pretty cool.
At least, yeah. I mean, it's the only one that I can think of that's done at least 3. There's 2. There's ones that have done 2, but not 3.
Which ones?
The
At
Soyuz
least 2?
count?
That's what
I
was
love
kinda
those
thinking.
rockets.
I was thinking along the Soyuz family and that
Yeah,
kind of
because
stuff.
Soyuz launched on Proton as well, very early on in the program, for the Zond missions and things like that.
And there's different versions of the Soyuz as well, different variants. But anyway, yeah, I'm sure there's something, but I'm just drawing a blank.
Someone mentioning Orion, yeah. There was
Orion,
a launch
that's
on
what I was
Delta
thinking
4
of, yeah.
Heavy.
Delta 4 Heavy and SLS.
Apollo
There we
launched on
go.
Saturn 1 and also on
Saturn 1B and Saturn 5. Very good.
And Little Joe, too.
Yeah, so 3. There you go. That's 3.
Hey, all right. There we go.
Does the I think it was the Castor thing, like the whatever rocket launched the Orion aboard.
Oh,
the
yes, the
ascent
Orion
aboard.
abort escape test. Yes.
Yeah.
That was also like a mini SRB deal.
Baby SRBSJ saying in the back channel.
Wasn't it a Minotaur?
Yeah, it was a Minotaur. It was just a missile, but still. Anyway,
Chris
I'm sorry.
reminded me in chat that we almost also had Orion launching on Ares.
oh, he mentioned it. He said the thing. No, Jay,
Pencil
no.
rocket.
Stupid rockets.
Ares 1's amazing.
Ares 5 is what I was looking forward to. Ares 1 is... Bleh.
We have Ares 5 at home. SLS at home.
Yeah, don't remind me of that.
Okay,
Speaking
Mercury
of-
also on Redstone and Atlas. Yeah.
Speaking of things that aren't flying right now, Starliner.
And another one that might fly into different rockets. Who knows if it actually gets to that point.
Sorry, that was horrible. Moving on. Here's the interesting thing with Starliner. So we've talked about before that at a press conference after the Crew 9 splashdown, they said that they were considering maybe not flying crew aboard the next flight of Starliner. So that would be a post-certification flight as opposed to the originally planned Starliner 1 mission. So they were looking at a potential third uncrewed flight for this. So that's what we've known. What's new is that there's been some changes going on here. So we know there's going to be a bunch of tests coming up on it. They will definitely be a kind of crew-ready one, but will there be crew on board? We'll have to see. We know 2 people that won't be on that crew, and they're all scheduled now to fly on Crew 11. So you had Mike Fink will now be the pilot of the Crew 11 Crew Dragon mission. He was originally supposed to pilot Starliner 1. His name has been on that docket for a long time. In fact, Sawyerflex, when I toured Johnson Space Center and we were in the Starliner building and going over the Starliner facilities, and when I flew the simulation vehicle, he was the one who gave me the tour and was talking about when he was going to be flying it. Also on board, Kamiya Yui from JAXA was also supposed to fly on Starliner 1, now has a seat on Crew 11. And that's in addition to Xena Cardman, who basically was supposed to fly on Crew 9, but got bumped to make room for Butch and Sunny, so she's finally getting her first flight, and then Oleg Platonov from Roscosmos. But I think this is interesting. What does that mean, EJ, do you think, in terms of crew flying, if they are already rearranging the crew that's been on the docket for a while now off of that vehicle?
Sawyer,
Well
I don't like it.
No, go ahead.
No, dude, what a mess. What a mess. Now, here's the thing, dude. I don't mind Starliner. I think it's a fine capsule. It's like 90% of the way there. But here's where I'm getting a little like, I'm following your plan, but your plan being NASA's, like I'm following their plan, and I'm just kind of, oh, you're gonna do that, okay? Post-certification flight, all right. You're gonna issue a certification for this capsule that doesn't work? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait. Why are we doing that? And then, like, I don't think that's necessarily a good idea. SpaceX wasn't held to that standard. SpaceX was held to a way higher standard. They had to fly DM1, and then they had to fly DM2 to get their certification. Why can't Boeing duplicate that? I'm confused. What's going on here? Why can't they do that? Is there a problem here? Well, the problem is that their thermal analytical model was atrocious, and it's caused all these thruster problems. And I get it, they're testing them on the ground as they should be. So my question is, A, why didn't you do this the first time? And B, how does testing on the ground get you a flight certification? Flight, operative word. I don't think that's necessarily a wise decision. I don't like that. I think the hardware available is forcing NASA's decision in this regard. Because, dude, like, when you think about it, everybody's gonna, we're gonna think like, oh, flying the next one uncrewed, that's a good idea. That's it. No, it's not. In order to achieve a crew certification for your capsule, you need to go through entry, descent, and landing with people on board. I don't think they've done that last time I checked. And last time I checked, it turned into a 9-month freaking PR fiasco for anybody that covers space news. So, what are we doing here? Even launching the next one with not people on it is still not good enough. So what are we doing here? Like, how is this going to work? Like, I don't think that putting cargo on the next flight. I mean, that would be the seemingly safe decision, but that's not going to get you. That's not going to get you certification. Why isn't NASA holding Boeing to the same standards that they did SpaceX? This is ridiculous. I mean, like, I don't understand what's going on here. They're all over the place.
And I get what you're saying about needing to have crew on board it, because, I mean, if you remember the first one that was also a mission failure, basically, when Starliner had the onboard clock that was wrong and there were firing issues, they had said if there was a crew on board, they could have easily fixed that and flown the mission. But there wasn't. With the last one where they undocked it, they tried to get that thing out of Dodge as quick as possible. So as a result, they did a shortened undocking maneuver. They didn't do the undock and the fly around that they were originally considering. They just said, nope, as soon as we can get it out of the keep out sphere, get it the heck out of the keep out sphere. That's not proving what it can do on undocking. Sure, it can undock, but if you want to be able to use it then to go out, to look at different parts of the station, if you need to be able to do a relocation with it for, let's say, another crew vehicle coming up to allow them to have the easier docking port, you lose that without people on it. So I kind of like what you're putting down there. Putting it on with cargo is absolutely useless. At the same time, if you're not willing to put people on it and risk flying it after 3 flights, then what are you doing? If after 3 flights, yes, they've all had issues with it, but after all of that, you're still not comfortable putting people on it. What does that say about your vehicle?
I'm more surprised. Go ahead.
The optics can't be. Alex, I was just saying the optics can't be ignored. Alex, go ahead.
Yeah. One of the things that surprises me, though, is that they are willing to certify Starliner and have the possibility of it being uncrewed, because post-certification mission means just that, like what Starliner 1, 2, 3, those kind of missions, right? You certify the spacecraft and then you carry out operational missions. Instead, NASA is saying we'll certify the spacecraft and maybe we'll fly it uncrewed. It's like, if it is certified, how is it that you're not carrying crew? It's like, shouldn't it be the other way around? Like, okay, we're not certifying yet, we're not carrying humans, or rather we're carrying humans to be able to certify that part of the whole story. One of the things that bothers me from this whole situation is that it appears that the rest of the spacecraft does at least decently well for the purposes
Yeah,
of just going to the ISS, delivering people, and coming back home. The problem is, to get there, you need a propulsion module that works. And as we've seen, there's issues with those thrusters, right? But like, the environmental control system works, all of the guidance systems work, all of those things, all of the other stuff that Starliner has seems to work, except for the thing that actually makes it go to the ISS. And once it goes there, if that fails, it's like, well, we've got a nice module here in the shape of a capsule, because it's like, what are you gonna do, right? And it just bugs me out that when they saw these issues on the second uncrewed flight, they never thought, let's take a look, let's do thorough work on the heating problem, the seals and everything, because they have two different problems with the thrusters. They have the seal problem with the helium leaks, and then you've got the overheating problem on those doghouses where there's like a bunch of different thrusters together in a very small place. So you have overheating problems and things like that, which they only realized after they flew the crewed mission with those two astronauts on board. And it's like, how were you, like, now they're doing that testing on the ground. Now it's when they're saying, okay, let's try to put a remedy to these overheating issues. Let's test those fixes and see how it performs on a test stand. And it's like, how is it 2025 that it is now when you're doing that, right? If you had done that before, you probably will not have had that issue on the crewed flight test. None of this will have happened because everything else seems to work well on the spacecraft, right? So it's like you will fly through the certification, and we will have probably had already a Starliner 1 mission. And it just makes me so mad about that.
I mean, there wasn't even supposed to be a second orbital flight test. It was originally OFT. They had to add a 1 in front of it after they said, that was terrible, let's do OFT2 and actually get to the space station. You make a good point, though, of the fact that you can't certify a flight vehicle without flight. If you're not willing to put people on board, then it's not certified. It's not ready for people. If you're concerned that you may not be able to get to or undock successfully from the space station with your thrusters, there's no way in heck that could be certified. Seriously. Especially when you're talking about the ISS. There is a keep-out sphere for a reason, because anything that gets dangerously close to it that is uncontrolled is a hazard to the station and to the people on board. We do not want a repeat of Mir with a docking gone wrong that causes a depressurization event.
Or a repeat of Nauka. Remember when it docked? It docked, yeah. But then after it docked, it threw all of these thrusters. It was firing them all, and it completely flipped the station like 1.5 times around itself. And it's like, but anyway.
One thing we should mention, though, is that NASA did give an update yesterday in a blog post, Alex, about their view on Starliner. Can you kind of just summarize that?
Yeah, it explains pretty much what I've been talking about here. For example, there's a quote here saying, NASA and Boeing are making progress toward crew certification of the company's CST-100 Starliner system following the crew flight test to the International Space Station. Joint teams are working to resolve Starliner's in-flight anomalies and preparing for propulsion system testing in the months ahead as NASA plans for Starliner's next flight. One of the things that it says there is that they have already looked through a lot of the systems and a lot of the things that were flown on those missions, on the uncrewed and the crewed flight test as well. Sort of like at the bottom there, you can see there has been a significant amount of work completed, with more than 70% of flight observations and in-flight anomalies being closed at program level control boards. So, and then they told the major in-flight propulsion system anomalies Starliner experienced in orbit are expected to remain open further into 2025, pending the outcome of various ground test campaigns and potential system upgrades. So essentially, everything else from the Starliner flight test, that crewed flight test, has gone through certification. It's pretty much going well. and they have already closed out a bunch of those things. When it talks about, flight observations and in-flight anomalies, that's NASA speak for, there was this little thing from like very little things like the toilet failed or whatever, or like there's a curtain here on some place, or a panel was a little bit loose, like something as very small like that, and to big major issues as the propulsion module issues that we were just talking about. It's a very similar thing that you might see, for example, with Orion, with Crew Dragon as well. There's every kind of mission, there's always like a list of what they call in-flight anomalies. And it's just that, like, little things that they observed on the flight between, from the smallest things to the really big ones. I believe this is probably the point of me promoting L2. I believe we have a list of something like that for Shuttle on L2, if I'm not mistaken. So shout out to that. But yeah, so essentially what we're just talking about, they're wanting to have the next Starliner flight towards the end of the year, maybe early next, and be a post-certification flight that is crew capable, which means it may not carry crew, and it's like, well,
yeah. Speaking of L2, I just want to I really want to quickly just thank someone earlier, Gunfox, signing up as an L2 lifetime member. So you get access to the entire forum, all of the L2 level stuff, which includes some personal photos that we have put up there of our own that haven't seen the light of day, some old photos and documents that are hard to find, all of that, and of course updates about upcoming and future spaceflight missions all on there in the L2 forums. So that includes lifetime access forever, Discord access with some extra L2 channels forever, and did I mention per Chris B? It's forever. So thank you for becoming an L2 lifer. Appreciate that. Sorry, EJ, go ahead.
Okay. So, fellas, I'm thinking about what you've been saying. I think we can all agree that this is not a great position, right? So now, we're all in agreement here. So now my mind is going like, okay, why? Why would they do this? We all think that this is not a good idea, and I'm very, very sure that a lot of people watching this stream are kind of with us on this one. So why? I started thinking about why. Well, okay, well, why would this happen? Well, you guys think it possibly has something to do with them not having enough Atlases to launch Starliner? There's only 6 Atlas V N22s left. That's it. There's no more. Boeing's on the hook for 6 more missions to the space station with Starliner. There's only 6 Atlas Vs. You do not have an Atlas V to run a test mission. You guys think that has something to do with it? Do you think that's influencing their judgment? I mean, makes sense, right?
I mean, I feel like that has to play a part in it, because as of right now, Starliner is not certified to fly on Vulcan. Vulcan is not fully crew rated yet. I don't, with the ISS scheduled to deorbit in 2030 at the latest, we'll say, with all of the discussions, I mean, I think they would rather fly all of them with crew. Would that be a full crew rotation, though, versus another test flight? That's the other question, too.
See, now we're starting to see the predicament that they're in. We all read this. I looked at it. We all read this, and we're like, wow, that's dumb, right? Why? What's going now? Because NASA knows good and well what, schedule pressure, how that can mess with space flight. So why would they make these decisions? Why would they do this? That might be one. It's the same kind of deal with Orion. Like, you're going to launch Artemis 2, and that heat shield can char, but you can't launch it on anything else to test it. And you only have so many ICPSs here because that production line doesn't exist anymore either, right? Like, a hardware lean program might be forcing the schedule here, and I don't think that's necessarily. I don't know, man. I wouldn't let that screw with my judgment, right? Because you're accepting elevated risk here that you don't need to.
There's also the fact that they only have. So they are on the contract for up to 6 missions, which is sort of the specific warning when they awarded this, is that it's up to. They could, in theory, NASA could choose to fly less than 6 missions, and I don't know why my camera is flickering so much today, but anyways.
You broke it.
I guess. Anywho, what I'm trying to get at is that before, so like NASA awards the contract and it says up to whatever number, and then there's like a sort of I don't remember the exact expression that they use. It's sort of like a call to action to actually initiate the work towards that mission. NASA has only done that with the first three of those missions for Starliner. They have not yet done that for the 4th, 5th, and 6th, which means, in theory, NASA could just say, you're just flying 3 missions. Whatever. In which case, there's actually 3 Atlas that will be sort of, in excess, I guess, for this purpose. It is totally on NASA's hand here to decide how many flights they wanna fly on Starliner. And also later down the line, there's at least some kind of intention, at least in the past, there was an intention to fly Starliner to other destinations, commercial LEO destinations, namely orbital reef, which will have meant it will still need to be certified on another rocket, right? There were rumors about maybe being New Glenn or maybe being Vulcan and things like that. So this is sort of my take as well. Sure, maybe they want to keep that opportunity, but also at the same time, they have a lot of options, right? They are not set in stone. It's not like you are between 2 very tight walls. There's a bit of a breathing room that they have in different options. So, yeah, that's my take on that.
I want to hit a few viewer questions here, because there's some really good ones that I've been queuing up. Creative Bites with the question, if Starliner is stopped, is there anyone else that could fill the gaps? EJ, I think it's just SpaceX flying more frequent, right?
Yeah, what can fill the gaps? The spacecraft that works can fill the gaps. Yeah.
Ouch.
Soyuz.
Like, I don't mean to be mean, but it's tough love. I like Starliner, and I think it's a pretty good capsule. But please, you gotta get your stuff together. Like, and I think they're working on that, but this is ridiculous, man. Like, yeah, I think Dragon will pick up the slack. Obviously, it'll pick up the slack. Like, as Alex was saying, NASA can pick and choose. They can pick and choose. They can, say, oh, you're flying 4, right, and then 2 uncrewed flights. Like, they can. We've seen from the Crew 11 selection, right, that you guys were talking about a little bit earlier. They can swap crews around. It's not a big deal. They have kind of carte blanche to do whatever because it's their space station. Weird, huh? Right? Like, so yeah, I think Dragon will pick up the slack. The spacecraft that, actually has, filled the needs of the commercial crew program. It ain't rocket science, man.
12 times, in fact.
Yeah, I know. It's weird, right? Like,
Or about to be 12 with Crew 11, yeah. Along those lines, John Cook is wondering, can an astronaut refuse to fly on a specific spacecraft, i.e. Starliner? I think if you're working for NASA, you get what you get and you're glad that you got something. If you don't want to fly on a vehicle, you retire. So I don't think there's a way that they can just flat out say no. Correct?
No, you go with your assignment, guys. That's not how it works at all. If you get assigned to the capsule, right? If you're in command of the capsule, like if you were, in Butch and Sonny's position, right? Your job is you're a test pilot. That's kind of how this works. I mean, a lot of astronauts are former test pilots, right? I wouldn't refuse if I was assigned Starliner right now. I would not refuse that mission. And I don't think any astronaut would. What I would do is start trying to make sure that I give myself the best odds of success, because I'm not going to not accept an invitation to fly into space. Like, no, I'm good with that. Like, and I'm pretty sure most test pilots are good with that as well. Be like, all right, this spacecraft could have problems with it. All right, cool. I'm the test pilot. I'll figure it out. I'll shake it down. I'm pretty sure like it's more of that. I'm pretty sure that's how the test pilots for these capsules work. Like, that's how I'd do it, and I'd be doing that. I'm pretty sure a lot of people in chat would be like, yeah, let's do this.
John Glenn,
Yep.
STS-1.
Yeah,
Space Shuttle.
John Young.
Somebody mentioned in chat, and they are correct, that,
John Young.
NASA could do the assignments, but also at the same time, the astronaut group needs to also approve that as well. Like the head of the astronaut corps also need to approve those assignments. So like if they think a spacecraft is totally not ready, like it's so risky, right? That is why for the crewed flight test they had test pilots. Like for such an experimental flight, you use that. You use test pilots, which are basically trained on very experimental aircraft or any other sort of aerial vehicle, if you want.
Yeah, and like you said, they're test flights. Although, if they go with crew on the next one, that would be considered operational. So that would
Which is
actually be Starliner 1. But, yeah. Also saw the question then, Ricky asking, and Alex, put aside that you don't want to go to space. If someone forced you to say you have to go to space, and they gave you Starliner, would you fly? EJ, I think you said yes.
Yeah, sure.
Alex?
Whatever. Yeah, I mean, just do it. If you're gonna force me anyways, like, that means I cannot say no, right?
Well, you could. Let's say you had the choice to pick a vehicle.
Well, if I have the choice to fly on a vehicle, then it's not just Starliner. I don't know, like Crew Dragon.
Yeah, let's say you were given the option, Crew Dragon or Starliner.
If I were that crazy, I will try Soyuz as well. Like, why not? Get me in a washing machine and drop me in the steppes of Kazakhstan. Like, just airdrop me there, and why not? If I'm gonna go crazy and just fly on a spacecraft, like, yeah.
Oh man. Also a question here from Six String Simpleton. I would, by the way, I'd totally do it. I mean, if they feel comfortable enough to put people on this upcoming flight, I would feel comfortable flying on it. Let's put it that way. If they go with a cargo uncrewed one on the next flight, I would have some serious questions, and that is going to be one spicy flame trench when they make that announcement, whatever it may be.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah. And then Six String Simpleton saying, would that mean more Crew Dragons produced if Starliner flops? I think they're going to stick with the 5, Alex, right?
They already made another one.
Yeah.
Like, how many more do you want?
It's already closed out. Factory, oop, away. It's already closed.
There you go.
They closed up shop.
There.
What are they selling? Dragon capsules now? All right, we're closed for the day. No more dragon capsules. You know?
Or would it be more with a button thing on the side and be like, anyway.
It's a blowout sale. All capsules must go. Oh, blowouts may be a bad word. Like, fire sale is worse.
Let's just say they closed up shop. We'll call it a day.
Rapid unscheduled closure? No.
It was scheduled, though. Wait a minute.
Yeah, but basically, you've got 5 to pick from. Those are your options now. Anyway, including Fram 2 launching on Resilience coming up. So that, by the way, don't forget, coming up on Monday evening, NSF. I saw someone asking John Cook before. We will be there covering Fram 2, of course, the first mission to orbit the poles. And there is another ISS crew. I will be there, yes.
Okay.
I will be on site along with your Cape team. And then we also have Johnny Kim, NASA astronaut, set to launch later, I believe it's in April as well, coming up to the ISS. So there's still more crew rotations, even without Crew Dragon and Starliner, Alex.
Yeah, that's actually going to be quite of a first for Soyuz, because it's also going to be the first time a Soyuz spacecraft will be in orbit for 9 months. 9
months?
Yeah. So not the crew, the spacecraft. In the past, when you've heard like some crews having stayed for a little bit longer, which I'm not talking about Sonny and Butch, because there's also been other people that have stayed in space for longer than they were originally planned, even though mainstream media will make you think otherwise. And so one of the things that has been sort of the norm with Soyuz is that at least since like mid 1990s and things like that, it's always been 6 months on station, maybe 7. It's always been rated for like 6-7 months because they use hydrogen peroxide on the capsule for attitude control on the capsule section, not the service module. Service module uses hypergoals, but the capsule, the descent module, in order to re-enter the atmosphere and have attitude control and everything, it uses hydrogen peroxide, and it degrades over time. I don't know what kind of upgrades they have done to be able to stay for 9 months, but it's been certified for 9 months. And Soyuz MS-27, the one with Johnny Kim, will be the first one doing that. He's quite he has such a career, right? I think it's like Navy SEAL, flight surgeon, like different things, and now astronaut as well. Like, it's being the source of many memes, I guess, of like, you look at this guy, he's just doing everything, right? But yeah,
Alex,
he's going to be spending 9 months on the station.
I was saying, if you guys want to feel inadequate, look at Johnny Kim's resume. Like, if you want to really just feel bad about how much you've accomplished in life, you should just go look at that. It's actually
what's on
okay.
it?
Oh, I mean, Alex already started doing it. So Johnny Kim he's a Navy SEAL. So first and foremost, he was a combat medic Navy SEAL. Let me put it that way. Anybody that knows anything about MOFs and, like assignments, combat medic is one of the hardest roles around. That's like one of the hardest jobs to do if you're fighting, right? Like, you really, really, really need to not be dumb. Your whole, it's the Navy squad, I guess, would, sorry, I don't know the proper nomenclature. Forgive me. Everybody depends on you, because without them, you can't fix people. That's what combat medics do, right? No. So he did that in the Navy SEALs, and then, he just decided that, all right, that's pretty good. It's a good start, right? That's a good start, right? So guy went to Harvard Med, got his doctorate. So he's just a doctor now. So he's a doctor and Navy SEAL. And then he just, got recruited to be an astronaut. So he's a Navy SEAL, doctor, astronaut. And NASA taught him how to fly planes and helicopters too. Just once again, in case you were feeling inadequate today, like, I made my bed. So what now?
More than I did.
Yes, as someone would say, he's definitely the main character.
Yeah. What do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a Navy SEAL. I want to be a pilot. I want to be a doctor. I want to be an astronaut. Sure, you can pick one of those. No, he did all of them.
No.
Oh, 4.
You can just do things.
Yeah.
You just do things. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty awesome. It's like, wow, all right, I got to do better. Like, that dude's out there just absolutely destroying everything that he chooses to do. He's like, I'm going to be good at this. I'm going to be the best at it. All right, cool. Sweet. I'm like, man, can I learn to, where does one acquire this power? Like,
I mean,
pretty
talk
good,
about
man.
qualified candidate,
Cool.
That's for sure.
Yep.
Well, of course, we'll wish them the best of luck on Johnny's upcoming launch and the entire crew of that Soyuz mission. So, more people in space, more better.
That's right.
And also more launches, more better, including a new launch vehicle set to make its debut out of Europe. And how appropriate we have a European on board. Alex,
Where is
I don't want to mispronounce it. What do we have coming up?
Mispronounce who or what? The company.
The company name is ISAR.
Yeah, ESAR Aerospace is going to be launching. Hopefully this weekend, we'll see, because the weather has been a little bit iffy. They're launching from Andoya in Norway, and I don't know how to pronounce Andoya. It has the weird...
Umlaut.
Whatever it's called, the slanty line thing.
Oh, the slanty line one. Oh,
on the O, the one with the slope. But anyways, or like the empty set for those that like mathematics. So this launcher is mid-range, like it's sort of like a big small sat launcher, small medium launcher, I guess. It's 30 meters tall, roughly 2 meters in diameter. It's made out of carbon composite. It can launch around a metric ton to low Earth orbit, 700 kilograms to a sun-synchronous orbit. One of the interesting things, though, well, there are multiple interesting things, but the first one that I'm going to be mentioning is its fuel. So we've had Kerolox rockets, we've had Hydrolox rockets, we've had Methalox rockets. There's also solids, hybrids, you name it. This one is using a Propalox. Like, that is right? That is liquid oxygen and liquid propane. So it's like,
they're using fine quality propane.
There you go. I was waiting for you to do that. So yeah, it's gonna be using that. So it's a cold fuel, so it also creates frost and whatnot. I don't think it reaches the point of actually being cryogenic though. But it's cold. It's liquid propane, and it's gonna be using that to power its Aquila engines. 9 of them are on the first stage, 1 vacuum optimized on the second stage. Really basic design, I guess, lately for many rockets, but it does the job, or at least they want to try and show that it does the job. That's the whole point of this first mission. Test flight of this rocket, the Spectrum rocket, launching from Norway. And one of the interesting things is that if it launches, it will be just right now, even being on the launch pad, it's sort of a first, because it will be the first commercially developed rocket in Europe that reaches the launch pad, and it's also orbital capable, right? My friends at PLD Space, they know I need to mention orbital, because they did also put a rocket on the pad and launched it and everything, but it was an orbital launch. So, and it was single stage, Meter 1, whatever. Love you guys if you're watching, whatever. But yeah, this will be the first commercial company in Europe being able to do that, which is quite an interesting thing to do, because it's always been Arianespace, Ariane, Vega, all of these rockets, traditional industry. And it's a first of many different companies, right? We've had also RFA trying as well, hopefully in later this year out of Saxavord. We've had, PLD Space is also trying to build up to the same kind of thing. Latitude, High Impulse, I'm probably forgetting 1,000 other companies that are developing commercial rockets here in Europe. And
hey,
so,
Alex.
Yeah, EJ.
What about MASSpace? They're totally commercial and independent, right? Like they're totally a part of this new space thing. How do you do, fellow new space companies?
See, right? Like it's technically a commercial company owned by a publicly, it's owned by Ariane Group, right? We've had them on NSF. I guess that's probably my transition to my shameless plug. That we have Europe's Future in Space, a whole series of live streams and interviews with different officials of the European space industry, talking precisely about all of this stuff. Like, there's rockets being made, live streams from space, you name it. There's a bunch of things going on, from new companies, traditional companies, mixes of both, like MASSpace, I guess. And so this is the deal, right? We're trying to bring more people. We've had PLD Space, we've had High Impulse, we've had SEN live streams from space. That's very cool. We've had MASSpace. And just last week we had, this week, a few days ago, we had Saxavord as well, a launch pad or launch site company, I guess. We need a flame trench company somewhere, just to bring them here to the flame trench. But yeah, and then next week, we mentioned this on Wednesday's show, but if you haven't watched it, we will have RFA, Rocket Factory Augsburg, next Wednesday as well, on Europe's future in space. And, we have other companies lined up as well. We're also talking with a bunch of other companies, still trying to line up dates and whatnot. So stay tuned. And if there's if you have a favorite European company that you want to be featured and everything, maybe it's on that list. But we're talking with many other companies. It's a bit complicated with certain ones and whatnot. No, shaming or anything, because they have their own plans and whatnot. So totally fair. But we'll bring them when they are ready to come to NSF.
So EJ, do you think they're ready to go full spectrum, as they call their mission, going full spectrum?
Yeah, why not? Let's go. I think the weather is what's cramping their style. Sawyer, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have very strong winds. This is in Norway, by the way. They have very strong winter winds up there, especially. You have the cold, you have the snow. I can tell you from our team that is up there, their hands are quite freezing out there. So
I was actually saying it in the back channel, like, do we have the Adrian tweet?
Yeah. By the way, for those unaware, I should point out that NSF will actually be providing the launch stream services to ESAR. So we have Dee, Adrian, and Brady who are on scene and have been working really hard to get all of this prepared for everyone. So NSF will be on scene with ESAR for this. So definitely set a reminder to see when they go live for the upcoming launch. But poor Dee, who's a Floridian now, up in the freezing cold. You've got Brady up there as well, and then Adrian, who drove up from Germany to Norway. I love our team. I'll just say that. I love them so much. So this is definitely going to be exciting. I also, while we get that picture up of them standing in front of the Northern Lights because show-offs, there's a thing in caps here, Alex. Make a point here about European sovereignty. Let's get the trench flamey with 3 exclamation points in our notes. I'm guessing you put that there.
Yeah, because, like, I was talking about this being the first commercially developed rocket and blah, blah, to get to the launch pad and everything. Yes, I know. RFA, for example, got the booster. Sure, this is the whole rocket, right? I'm trying to make all of the different, conditions to make it a big deal. No, but really, it is a big deal that we finally have a commercially developed rocket ready on the launch pad. Whatever the outcome is, they're trying their best. They say that they're going to be, trying to get all the data that they can from this launch. It's a first mission, right? So it's not like, we are expecting it to be super, super duper perfect and everything. So we totally understand that. Now, the thing is, as I was saying, this is not the only company doing all of this, right? We have a complete set of other companies trying to get to this point, and it's about time that it happens. Because I feel like this is something that is been happening and that is, it's been brewing on the US and even in China, if you can call them commercial companies, I guess. But they have different rockets being developed and whatnot. Like a very similar rocket from the US, for example, to Spectrum is the Alpha rocket from Firefly, which we'll also be covering as well for Firefly. As you can see, NSF has been very busy lately. And one of the things is that, those kind of capabilities of being able to say, we are free from ULA, for example, in the US, right? We are free from cost-plus contracts and all of that. Getting all of these opportunities, getting all of these, commercial market is so freeing in some senses. It's like, please, let's get to it. Let's do it.
There you go. Alex rant. But it makes sense, though. I get it. And there's our amazing team, by the way. I'm told that this was a long exposure and they had to stand there as still as possible for 5 seconds to be able to get that shot while freezing their tuchus off. So props to them for doing that.
They're already frozen.
Yes. But yeah, so again, We'll be working with ESAR on that. Make sure you check that out. And of course, we'll post all the info as these launches and things happen on our social channels, on Facebook, on Threads, on Instagram, on X, on Blue Sky, on TikTok. So check all of those out if you haven't already. You're welcome, LSR. All right, now that Alex has his rant out of the way, I think it's time to move on to the silver elephant in the room, as we continually call it, or at least I do. We briefly mentioned the NSL contract, and if anyone has questions about Starship now getting NASA contracts, we can answer more questions about those. But we also have to talk about what's actually going on in Starbase. Which one of you wants to take this one to start?
Alex could take this.
Again? Okay, I can also take
Yeah,
that
I mean,
one.
if you want me to.
You know, one of the problems of this week is that it's been very rainy, very bad weather at Starbase, and in general, like central, South Texas area. It's been a bit of a bad, rough weather down there. What they have trying to do, though, in the meantime, is a lot of testing at the pad. There we can see some of the weather yesterday. As seeing live on Starbase Live. You know how they do that on TV anyways. But yeah, look at that. Look at the top right there. Yeah, anyways.
What am I looking at?
That is the
that's
bad
lightning.
weather at Starbase.
That's what I mean. You can't see anything other than lightning.
Exactly.
It's lightning.
It's a lot of lightning and a lot of clouds
neat.
and rain.
No, you can tell it's lightning because of the way it is. That's pretty neat.
But yeah, in the meantime, they have at least tested, for example, the chopsticks at Pad B. They did a few opening and closing sets and everything. They've been testing as well the Pad B systems. Some of the the tank farm at Starbase, the ground tanks, the storage tanks for the propellants and whatnot. Those are shared among the two pads, Pad A and Pad B. However, it makes sense to then, out of those storage tanks, you have pumps and subcoolers going to Pad A on one side, and then pumps and subcoolers going to Pad B on the other side. They've been for months working on trying to install the pumps and subcoolers for the Pad B stuff. And just yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, they were testing some of that system that you can see. So on the subcooler system, there's like this new ventilation system. They have like a fan that blows up all of that up in the air to avoid sort of what we see, for example, during launches, that there's like this carpet of nitrogen gas across the ground and everything. Like it looks like this sort of white carpet essentially covering all of the ground nearby. And so those fans, for example, will help, bring all of that up and be able to disperse and not have that all over the place, which it's going to be interesting for our viewing experience so far. But yeah, they were testing some of that systems even before it's been plugged to all of the Pad B infrastructure and everything. And in the meantime, they're also removing the high bay as well, bit by bit. They're still removing pieces a little bit larger, a little bit smaller. Is that live right now, Jay? I guess it is, because it's yeah.
Yes.
Right now, 5:54 p.m. Central. But yeah, there you can see a live view right now of how it is there at Starbase. You can watch that on your own computer on Starbase Live as well. It's nsf.live/Starbase if you want to have a very nice short link for that. In the meantime, you can also go to nsf.live/SpaceGhost for more things. Well, first, you might be able to see the Fram 2 Falcon 9 in capsule, because it's out there at 39A. It's already rolled out, which is very nice. But also at 39A, they're also working on the Flame Trench. I said the word. I said the,
No, you said the thing.
Exactly, right?
That's the name of the show.
I said the name of the show. But yeah, they're working on the Flame Trench there. And when you want to dig a very big hole in the ground, you need to prepare that ground. And so what they're doing is they're installing the pile sheets, or the sheet piles. I don't know what's the order of that. But essentially, these big sheets of metal that they insert into the ground, and then they make sort of like the rectangular area of the flame trench to dig in, and then they start digging in. And, you know, when you were a kid and you're digging things on the ground and everything, you probably already experienced the fact that if you dig too big of a hole, it can cave in. So that's the whole reason why they're putting those sheet piles. Even then, there's probably going to be reinforcements. We've seen that at Pad B where they had to reinforce those sheet piles as well because it's a very big flame trench, right? And so they're going to be needing all that. And once it's dig out, they need to work on all of the, foundation systems and everything. Like, I don't even know the technical jargon for all of that. It's way past my...
Which part are you describing?
It's essentially like they need to create the ramp system, right, with all of the concrete and everything that they need to put, and then they need to put the flame bucket as well. Those are pieces that we probably will have to spot on the next flyover whenever D comes from Norwegian experiences. I guess we'll do that.
And those are sheet piles. SHEET. Not like Jay Keegan saying the number 6. No, sheet. SHEET. Sorry, continue.
Okay,
I just had
all right.
had to make the clarification. Sorry,
Jay. So, yeah, Alex. So what they're doing is they poured the bottom slab of concrete, which was, I think I had people over in my chat tally it up. It was like 308 trucks.
Yeah,
so
that's Pad B at Starbase. So we are where Pad B was like in August at 39A. So it's like a 8-month delay, so to speak. But also at the same time, at 39A, they already have the tower and the chopsticks, right? They need a few things modified here and there.
Who knows how operable they are, right? Like, who knows how operable those sticks are at 39? Does it even have a drawworks on it? Do we know?
They do have the drawworks system. They have not reeved all of the cables and everything. One thing that I will say, though, it seems like they're working on the reinforcements to those sticks. We featured this on the latest Starbase update. I know because I wrote it. I wrote the last 5 Starbase updates, so I quite know about this. But I'm laughing because it's the only way that I can cope with that. But it's true. Like, we're seeing already some of that work to reinforce the sticks at 39A, which is one of the things that they already did at the Pad B sticks well before they were installed. But yeah.
Yes. So, by the way, people keep saying short May 6 in the chat, long March 5, but. Because of course they do.
It's so distracting, man. I'm trying to keep the conversation going.
You and me both. But yeah, so
Long March 5.
Dang it, chat.
Yeah, so but the reefing is not
Long March 5.
The reef is not done yet on 39A. So any opening and closing is still them opening and closing it. But
well, they could open and close without the reefing and the reeving or whatever it's pronounced. It's like the big cable that just goes through all of the pulleys and traveling blocks and whatever. I had such a nightmare explaining that on a recent Starbase update. But there you can see that they also have a lot of scaffolding around the corners of the carriage system at 39A. We think they may start to be working on some of that of those systems as well. To prepare things like, hooking up the hydraulics and hooking up, like, all that stuff. They don't have the actuators yet, though, so there's still a bit of more work to be done, but they're working on it, which is important.
They are. Now, the other thing, before we get to some questions, we have to talk about the recent road closure notices that just came out today, I believe, and testing that we're expecting to see, right? Right?
I guess I'm also talking about
anybody.
this.
Am I right?
Alex, just keep it going.
Yeah, I'll keep it going. I have enough energy, I guess, with the coffee this morning. But yeah, that's one of the things that we've seen as well. There seems to be a road closure for April 3rd, if I'm not mistaken, and then with a backup on April 4th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Central Time. whatever that is in UTC, you just go forward 5 hours. I guess noon to midnight UTC. But that's essentially what we've seen. Now, what could be tested at the pad, right? There's multiple options. Without a rollout closure, and I know there's been movements implicating a potential rollout. I'm going to get to the point of like, there's no rollout closure, so let's assume nothing rolls out. They could, in theory, close the road because they're testing something so energetic at the tank farm that they need to close the road and they need to close the launch site. We've been there before. We've seen that before. Now, Jay, you're pointing out a rollout closure, but that's from March 26. What were
2
you
days
doing
ago.
there? Yeah, right. That was 3 years. Three days ago.
He says, I
2 days
know.
ago.
That was my point.
Yeah, so it should be there at some point if they actually roll out something. However, we have the guess that they are going to be rolling something out because there's a booster transport stand, or at least it was on the move very recently. So we think there's going to be a booster coming out. But which booster will be coming out to the launch site?
What do we
14.
think? Oh,
EJ!
EJ, what are your thoughts, huh?
What? Sorry, no, I was just clearing my throat.
Well, can you clear your throat a little clearer so the people at home can hear it?
Oh. Yeah, guys, all right, my thoughts, it's Booster 14. It's Booster 14 with the chair! No. Yeah, I think they're going to roll out 14 for testing. This is not like a controversial thing. I think that's the one they're going to reuse. I mean, considering 15 and 12 are outside, you know.
I mean, that is fair. And do we have any word, Alex, on where they are with 16 yet?
Well, they did the cryo test before Flight 8, actually. And then after doing a bit of shuffling around the production site with Booster 15 being sent to the production site, they then moved Booster 16 back to the Mega Bay. If it were Booster 16, it will definitely be a record in the pace and cadence and everything. Something that Ryan, I'm going to be in Ryan mode here. It will be a very impossible thing, and it's totally impossible to happen. I don't know. I'm not a good Ryan imitator.
Hey,
Trying to be negative.
Ryan's here? Wait, where did Alex go?
No, where's the positivity?
Yeah.
But
Hi, Ryan.
But that's sort of the point, right? Like, if it were to be Booster 16 going out for a static fire next week, that will be quite an amazing and very interesting thing, because it will mean that, you know, they were able to prepare it really quickly after coming back from its campaign at Massey's, right? That will be an unprecedented level of ramp up in preparations and cadence and whatever you want to call it. So, given that, there's a higher chance just with that it's probably going to be Booster 14. But here's my question. Chin, 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 chin. Do you think maybe Booster 16 will come out still anyways at some point before Flight 9? Just in case.
I feel like they would have to test it, right? I mean, if the goal is not even so much as a backup, but if nothing else, to be ready so that if they finally get the success on Flight 9, that they're ready to go with Flight 10 if they want to go with a new booster. They've already tested, they've already done the static fire potentially on it, so that it's good to go if all goes well with the next flight. EJ, what do you think?
Fast cadence.
Yes.
I think they're going for 14. 16 will just enter the flow for Flight 10. Yeah, I think they're going for it. I think 14 is the next one. I don't think it's going to roll out with 16. 16 still has a ways to go in there.
But would they test 16 before Flight 9?
No.
Ooh.
No. Why? Why would you?
I mean, if it's ready to and you're waiting for, let's say, the ship fixes to be done, why not continue your flow with the boosters, right?
I don't know. I think if you're going to take into consideration that you're reusing 14, you would want all eyes on that, don't you think? You wouldn't want to necessarily do parallel processing just because that thing, you really want to make sure that thing doesn't, SN4 itself on the pad.
Now, doing parallel processing with Booster 17.
Yeah, but that's 2 new boosters, I guess, is what he's kind of saying, versus a previously flown booster and a new booster.
if they're going to push for reuse with 14, all eyes are going to be on 14. Like, I don't think they're going to bring like 16 out to the OLM, put it on the OLM, bring 14 out there, you know, swap them and then go. But I could be wrong. Like, I don't know. I don't know. You're going to move 2 boosters down the road at once? Like, I mean, that'd be a very SpaceX thing to do. But
I can imagine, though, you know, bringing booster 14 next week. And then since they seem to have to, you know, need a bit of time with the ship side of things, because ship 35 has not even come out for a static fire yet. So it's definitely clear that we're waiting on the ship. Maybe like 3 weeks later, say, for example, like mid-April, something like that, they roll booster 16 out on a similar timeline that we've seen other boosters coming out for a static fire test and then doing its own static fire test, in which case, sure, it might not be for Flight 9, but in that case, it will be ready to fly for Flight 10 right away. They will just be waiting for Ship 36, for that matter. Why not?
If Booster 14 was just any other booster in the processing timeline, dude, I don't see why they wouldn't do that. But I think if they're gonna focus on reuse, I think they'll be focusing on that, and I think they're gonna stay on 14. Just because, yeah, like, I don't know. That's kind of what makes sense, like, in my mind, because, you know, that's where you're going to learn the most with the reused booster. You know, it's very clear that they got catching that thing down, like, and don't get me wrong, like, not trying to say, like, oh, just because they catch boosters, they caught boosters, maybe they'll catch booster 16, or, no, the reuse is the next key step for Super Heavy's, like, kind of movement, right? Like, I think that's going to constitute way more effort. Then that's not to say, Alex, that they won't work on the other stuff in the background. I think if 14 rolls out there, it's going to roll out there. I don't think they're going to, like, play musical chairs with boosters and processing stands out at the pad, you know, with 14 and 16. I mean, maybe, who knows? But
well, they don't need any, like, they have already a booster stand, and, like, the way that I would see this is, you know, one booster comes out, does the static fire, comes back to the mega bay, gets ready for launch. A couple of weeks later, the other booster comes out, goes out to the launch site, does its static fire test, comes back to the mega bay. Like, you wouldn't need even any musical chair kind of arrangement with boosters and stands in that ideal world of, like, you know, let's test actually both boosters. They would, in theory, have enough time to do both. I don't know.
That's kind of my thought process. Yeah.
I think even from a standpoint of let's fly 16 on Flight 10, it will probably make sense to start doing this static fire test before the next flight, because the booster part, for the moment, knock on wood, right, seems to be proven, and without needing major changes, like the ship, right? So in theory, maybe they can start doing the static fires before the previous launch.
By the way, Alex, what's the crane doing?
It's lifting a load spreader. It's gonna be coming up to the high bay and remove a part from it.
Like what the dog doing? What the crane doing? There you go. Remove part of the high bay. Yeah. I do want to hit some more questions here. Gina's asking, EJ, I'll throw this to you. If they fly Booster 14 successfully, do you think they would go for a third flight with it?
If the data says, sure, why not? I mean, I've heard rumors that they're not, but that's just rumors, so, you know, don't take that as official information. But, like, I heard rumors that they're going to, like, send it out in the ocean or something. I don't know. Once again, that's just rumors. It's just hearsay. There's no concrete sources there, so... I think, you know, if we're going to play out the notion that they do get it back and they catch it again, sure, why not? Or, at the very least, now you got a good idea of what reusing a booster's processing flow looks like, and then you use what you learned there from trying to reuse it to make a better Super Heavy, to, like, influence Block 2's design. That's pretty much what they did with Falcon 9s, with Block 4s, right? They used them once, twice, I think maybe 3 times is the most we got with those things. And then they just expended all of them because Block 5 was the one that really can have those quick turnarounds, as we saw the other day with, 9-day turnaround from for a Falcon 9, which is still crazy to me. But I think that maybe they'll go for a third flight. It really depends. It depends on the data. It depends on how well the booster fares, and what you got to think about, like, what the turnaround time operations are going to look like. Like SpaceX right now, it's like the booster lands, you put it on the OLM, the OLM saves it, then they pick it up, put it on a stand, and they send it back, right? Like there, you got a basic processing flow there. Like you get a basic idea of what you're going to do, but what you're going to do, but that's not going to work in the future, right? It can't take a couple of days to get back to the build site for a booster. Starship's going to need to be moving super heavies back and forth in a couple hours, right? So those operations will start coming into focus once they start, if they start reusing boosters, right? And there's going to be optimizations in that processing, and some of them are going to be constrained by the mechanical nature of the booster. Like, this bolt needs to be undone like 3 or 4 times to turn the thing around. SpaceX will start iterating on the processing and optimization from there. Does that make sense, guys? Like, I don't know if they'll use it a third time. I really don't. It depends. But history's kind of said they'll use it, and then they'll use that to figure out how to turn boosters around quicker in the future.
Yeah, we will have to see. We also have a question here for the super chat from Payejo Prince, I believe, saying, do you think the Saturn V building at KSC will be far enough away to view a Starship once it launches from 39A? I hope so, because it's about, 4.5, 5 miles away? The press site is about 3.2 miles away. I'm worried for our windows at the hut at the press site when that thing launches. That is going to be bonkies. What's also bonkies is that we are out of time here. We have This Week in Spaceflight set to premiere in just a few minutes, and you don't have to go anywhere. If you want the actual serious news to know what's going on, or you have some questions maybe that weren't answered on the Flame Trench, I'll bet you Alicia Siegel has the answers coming up. This Week in Spaceflight premiering immediately after this will auto-redirect you. You don't even have to change the channel, because I know you're going to want to stick around for the final gifts or whatevers we have. And of course, I have to thank the fantastic membies that we have here. Without you guys, we could not do what we do. So a big thank you, especially our launch directors and flight engineers. Those are our highest levels of support. Of course, one of the perks is that you get your names at the end of our Flame Trench and NSF Live shows. And flight engineers, again, you get that parking lot, that parking space. Which parking lot? You'll have to find out eventually, but you'll get it. Oh gosh, EJ, we need a tour of your hat collection, someone said. We need a video of that soon. Thank you for joining.
I dropped it. I dropped the Cygnus hat, guys. Sorry.
Can't wear it anymore, it's damaged.
Yeah, maybe we'll wear it 2 Flame Trenches from now, but it'll be a different one or something. No, okay, jokes aside. Thank you for having me, everybody. It's a privilege being on here with you guys. I do appreciate it. Thank you. I stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/EJ_SA. I'm there 5 days a week, and then Flame Trench here. So it's a privilege being on here, and I appreciate everybody's company. Thank you.
Alex, thank you for joining as well. Appreciate your insight as always.
It's been a pleasure. One thing I will say though, jokes on all the people talking about the rumors about expendable boosters and whatnot. We talked about this just last week. I remember that you guys were talking about the possibility of expending boosters to relieve some of the space and everything at Starbase. But yeah, so there you go. And also, yeah, Falcon 9 also expended a bunch of boosters without using them more than twice. I'm trying to make the time. Go ahead.
Yeah. Jay Keegan, thank you for pushing the buttons and pulling the levers on today's stream. We appreciate it. I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I have been your host. And it is time to expend this episode of the Flame Trench and head on over to Twist. Have a great one, everybody. Thank you, Jack, as well, for the sound.
Wait, we're not reusable?
And here we go.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roger, Atlantic.
Water towers fly! Yes! They go down to nominal.
Flight downside, SPD off. Bring in, SPD off. Off. It's on!
God! Oh my God!
Decollage. What is it? Put that in the big bag, you know.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?